What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi Fruit Loop. What you know?
I'm going to tell you, I know that our listeners are just awesome.
Yes, they are. I love them.
Like, just interacting with them during the day.
I know. It's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, they're so
Yes,
cool.
we have the best listeners. I put something out today, which is really crazy, but we have 940, over 945,000 downloads. We're going to hit a million soon. And that is just crazy.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Like, I checked that number today and I kinda, like, rubbed my eyes to make sure I was looking at the right number. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So we wanna give a shout out to Sharon and Debbie for the PayPal donations. We really appreciate that.
Thanks,
Our
guys.
Yeah, our PayPal is prettyliesandalibis@gmail.com for PayPal, and, don't feel obligated, but it does help. So we do
Yep.
appreciate it. We'll shout you out on the show. Chad has a hearing tomorrow at 9:30 their time. So I guess that's what, 11:30 here?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is the second motion to extend time for filing and hearing motions. And I think this is specifically about a motion to dismiss.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. We will see
Yeah.
what his argument to dismiss this will be.
Yeah.
And then we'll have an episode that night where we just laugh and say,
Exactly, because he'll sit there like this the whole time. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So speaking of Lori and Chad, it's been 2 years today since Nate found them in Hawaii and ran after them with that microphone and camera.
Yeah, I
That's
love
hard to
that.
believe. Shane Bishop, who's one of the executive producers for Dateline, he was on the camera for that. That was something that he put on Twitter the last time that they had a Valo Daybell episode.
That's so cool.
Yep.
That's fine?
Right.
What'd he say? What'd he
That's
say?
great.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so, they were all about that loin fire right then. So, we
Yeah.
wanna give a shout out to, one of our sponsors, Two Cool T-Shirt Quilts. You can go to twocooltshirtquilts.com/pretty lies and alibis. Check them out. We appreciate their support. And so, I have a tally now for upcoming concerts I'm going to, and I'm getting excited.
Uh-oh.
All right, so the Eagles are coming to Greenville. Me and
Yep.
my oldest are going. Bob Dylan is coming to Asheville. So we're going to that one. Bon Jovi's coming to Greenville. And then next week, I'm getting me and my oldest tickets to Bonnaroo because Stevie Nicks is headlining that. So we'll get to see Stevie. I'm so ready.
Okay. So I thought Bob Dylan was deceased.
Oh, Fruit Loop. No.
I'm telling you.
No.
I don't do I
Don't
love
you
music. I love
don't you
music,
jinx him.
but I don't know
Probably just
anything.
knock on wood. Come on now.
No, I was like, what? Is it like one of those lookalikes, like
No,
Elvis
it's
impersonators?
Bob Dylan.
But I
Man,
have been to Memphis and been in Elvis's house, so
well, you got
that's
that
something.
going for you.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I need to take you to, like, a rocking concert. We gotta live it up.
I really like being like watching even sporting events now. I'm like, I can watch it at home, get a great view, eat my food, and
No,
use my restroom.
I'm with you on the sporting events, unless it's Clemson, but, yeah, I guess some of us just wanna stay forever young, and
Yeah,
here I am doing it for the both of us.
yeah, you do
Alright,
it.
so we're gonna get back into the Night Stalker, which can I tell you, I took a nap today at 1:00 because now that my oldest can drive, I don't have to do these, car lines anymore. So I'm snoozing, totally dreaming about the Night Stalker. I'm scared to death. It's one of those dreams where you feel like somebody's in your house, but you can't wake up.
Yeah,
So it felt like forever. And
yep.
so finally I wake up and my son is peeking in my he happened to just peek his head in my room to make sure I was okay because I don't take naps these days very often. And I'm going to tell you, I about whacked him with the remote control. I had it in my hand because I was still sort of, in a daze. But man, I've had the willies since I've watched this again.
Yeah, I had weird dreams last night.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The good thing is our listeners seem to really like it.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna start actually tomorrow working on some Ted Bundy stuff, start watching some documentaries for the next time we do this.
Yeah.
So, where we left off last night, we're just gonna go back one little paragraph to catch everybody up. This is when the attempted kidnapping is reported and LAPD happened to be in the area, so they see the Toyota commit a traffic violation and pull him over. At this point, the cops don't know he's the guy they're looking for. So as the cop is going back to his motorcycle to get a citation pad, Ramirez hears them call in the attempted kidnapping with a description of the car he's standing beside. So he draws a pentagram on the hood of the car and takes off. So that's where we left off last night. The LAPD takes that car in and says that they will handle the fingerprinting.
Yeah. And it was interesting. They pointed out that back then there were so many different divisions
Yeah.
that they competed against each other.
Right, and that's kind of ridiculous when you're talking about solving crime. It should totally
Yeah.
be a group effort for your communities, but I get it too.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
you know,
my evidence, my territory. You
right.
stay out. Yeah.
So, a few days later, Linda Author, who is the crime scene technician that we talked about in the first episode, she gets in touch with Gil and tells him to come to her house because something has happened to a neighbor and she thinks it's connected to the serial killer. And what had happened was she had friends over and they were getting out of the hot tub around 3 in the morning and they all went to bed. So a friend of hers who was sleeping over gets up and comes into her room and says she heard um, her neighbor, Sophie Dickman, yelling for Linda from outside. So Linda goes outside and looks over a brick wall and looks over towards her house, and she sees Sophie in the window of an upstairs room across the street. She was saying that she had been, and trigger warning, guys, we do talk about sexual assault in this case. She has been robbed, raped, and bound with handcuffs to her bed. She had moved her bed to the window so she could call somebody for help. And he had gotten in through a cat door. And during the assault, he put a pillow over her head and told her not to look at him. Now, we've heard with several victims, I think on down, he doesn't like people looking at him, and you kind of wonder why. I don't think it's because he cares about them seeing him. It's only when he's assaulting them. And you kind of wonder, what's the psychology behind that? What makes him not want them, for somebody who likes to see the fear? When
Yeah.
he is assaulting people and children, he tells them not to look at him. It's weird.
Yeah.
So jumping to July 7th, 60-year, and remember, this is 1985. 60-year-old Joyce Nelson was murdered in her home in Monterey Park. Her son, Don, found her in the floor in a pool of blood. She was beaten to death, and he stomped the side of her head so hard that it left a footprint. They also found a shoe print on the concrete by the front door. She was not sexually assaulted. And less than a mile away, he went to Sophie Dickman's house. Now, that's the one we just heard about. This actually happened first. So after he murdered Joyce Nelson, that's when he goes to Linda's house or to Sophie Dickman's house, and that's the girl up in the window calling for her neighbor. So after Joyce Nelson's murder, the media really started catching on after starting to see Frank and Gil together at these murder scenes. And all of a sudden it became the big news story in LA.
Yeah. So at this point, they had a task force of 200 officers working the case. July 8th, Laurel Erickson calls Frank and asks about the shoe print. And she was a reporter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she was a reporter in LA.
Yep. And they know this could be a problem because if the killer knew police were onto his shoes, he could change them and it would not be as easy to identify which crimes he committed. And we talked about that yesterday. The shoe print was a specific brand and only one sold in LA. So Frank asked her not to run with the story of the shoes because it could blow their cover. Frank and Gil agree to interview with her about the investigation as long as she doesn't mention the shoes. That was a little inside. That was interesting, I thought.
But you think about it though, how true is that? if that, because they knew he was probably watching the news. If they find out, if he finds out that they're on to this very rare, unique shoe, then he's going to change the shoe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really can mess investigators up when these things get leaked. We
Yeah.
see it all the time in cases we cover. Something's leaked,
Yeah.
and it
And
puts things in jeopardy.
he said it was a detective who leaked it. That's
Yeah.
what Frank said. Yeah.
Mhm.
So July 9th, Gil and Frank inquire about the prints from the Toyota that Ramirez drew the pentagram on, and they found the car was never printed. It had been stored outside in the sun, and any evidence was gone. Inside, I thought that was bad because if you remember, the officer had him put his hands on the hood, and it would have been a straight up fingerprint, whole handprint. So that was irritating that happened. So inside the car, they found a business card for a dentist in Chinatown. Frank and Gil talked to the dentist and find he had been in July 3rd, which was 5 days earlier. Had they had access to the car earlier, they could have possibly stopped him. The records show his paperwork that he filled out had Richard Manna with a fake address, but they were able to get the dental x-rays, and those were taken to another dentist. And he told them, that one tooth was impacted and is very painful, and he would be back. So they set up surveillance inside the dental office. An executive in the department pulls the investigators out of the dentist office and installs a red panic button instead. July 15th, the day after they pull their undercover agents from there, the dentist calls that night late and asks why they didn't come, and says Richard had been in that day, and he kept hitting the alarm, but it didn't work.
They had several things where they could have stopped him way earlier had they not pulled them, had the LAPD done the fingerprints before storing it out in the hot sun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. So July 20th, Leela, 66, and Maxon Needing, 68, Glendale, their daughter tried to call and got no answer. She noticed the pool gate and back door was open. She walks in and finds him dead. Maxon was nearly decapitated, and Leela's face was gone from a shotgun wound.
Crazy. So there were no shoe prints, but a 22 have been used, and they connected that to the Dale case. And that same morning, another victim is found in Sun Valley. And as they walk into the front door, they see an Avia shoe print on the black concrete, and they find another on the step up into the living room. So let's see here. They found Chainarong Cove.
You always get the hard names.
Gosh, I know. I'm going to start putting these in your color.
Hovananth?
Yeah, Covenant, who was 32, shot in the head. And his wife and young son both were assaulted. They estimate Ramirez was in the house for 2 to 3 hours, and he took jewelry. The wife gave a really detailed description of Ramirez, and so they got a really good sketch and went public with it. So to stay 2 or 3 hours after a crime is so brazen. And yeah, it's crazy. It's interesting because, obviously he wasn't worried about getting caught when he does stuff like that. But if you remember at one point in the documentary, they talk about he shoots a man in the head and it doesn't kill him, and the guys are running for him. Yeah. Chases him out the house, and that cop said he was a coward. And I think that ended up and got put in the news later, which they were not happy about.
Yeah.
So on August 6th, Chris and Virginia Peterson were shot in Northridge. Ramirez entered the house and shot Virginia, but she survived. Mr. Peterson was shot. He also survived. Oh, this is it. Chris chases him out of the house. This time it was a different gun. It was a 25 automatic. The shell casings. Oh my gosh. I skipped that late coffee because I'm not sleeping good at night, and clearly I've made a big mistake. The shell casings had a red primer, which was an older type of shell that wasn't made anymore. So they knew that, if they didn't have the shoe print, maybe that could kind of be their new signature. And they knew when he was reading the paper because the Doi 911 call was released to the media. From then on, the phones were either taken or cut in the homes. Sometimes he would use that phone cord as a ligature.
Mm-hmm.
So August 8th in Diamond Bar, this is really close to Gil's house. I think maybe a mile. And he said it took him 5-6 minutes to get to this scene. And this is when his wife told him to wait before he left. And she took her kids and left and said, "We will not be back until he's caught." Because it's getting close to home at that point. Scary.
Yeah.
We have a lot of listeners who were living in LA during this time. We have one listener who was a court reporter for this. So I would love to pick her brain and because being in the courtrooms for these big cases is, front row seat.
Yeah.
So, Elias Abawath, 35, is shot and killed with a .25 automatic that also had the red primer on the casing. And his wife, Sakina, was handcuffed, beaten, and assaulted, and their 3-year-old son was tied up.
Oh,
They also find a honeydew melon that had been half eaten on the counter with the spoon still in it. You see the picture on the documentary. And Sakina said during the attack, Ramirez told her not to look at him. And she said, "I swear to God, I won't." And Richard said, "Don't swear to God, swear to Satan." So she swore to Satan because you do what you got to do with a crazy man. So Gil is hearing a lot of misinformation about the case from other jurisdictions. So he decides to make a tape about the suspect and all the cases and send them out to the different agencies so that the stories can stay straight.
Yeah, that was smart.
Yeah.
So Frank Falzone travels to San Francisco. Peter and Barbara Pan were shot in the head. Barbara was also sexually assaulted. Peter was dead on scene, but Barbara was alive when investigators arrived, and she was transported. She survived the attack. He ate food in the refrigerator and vomited. Oh.
He also did something else, but we don't need to know about that.
Yeah. Ramirez drew a pentagram in lipstick and wrote "Jack the Knife" on a wall in the bedroom. Glendale PD hears about the murders and asks them to do a ballistics check on the bullets. They found the red primer on those as well. They knew it was him, so Frank and Jill went to San Francisco. Reporters Laurel Erickson and Paul Skolnick hear about the link and end up on the same flight as Frank and Gil. They were not happy to see them.
So I think my notes were slightly confusing in the beginning. So Ramirez goes to San Francisco and everything lines up in this new murder investigation. So Frank and Gil, the two detectives, as well as the two reporters, they're on the same plane going up there because they know he has hit in San Francisco.
That's crazy. So while there, Paul is talking to a neighbor who is washing his car. He happens to be a police officer. He tells Paul he was told by a colleague that they'd found writings on the wall, just like the cases in LA. Once news of the pentagrams hit the news, people start calling in saying they've seen them all over in parks and bus stops. Frank denied the tip about the writing on the walls to Laurel outside the house when asked. On the video Gil made about the case to send to other jurisdictions, he asked the shoe print remain confidential. So the mayor in San Francisco, Diane Feinstein, was asked if they could offer a reward for information leading to the arrest of Ramirez. She went to the media with the police sketch and offers a $10,000 reward. She tells about the ballistics matching the ones in LA and also told about the shoe print connecting the murders. Gil and Frank are furious. Her news conference completely put the investigation in jeopardy. Those shoes were never recovered.
Yeah, they were hot. Even all these years later, when they're talking about it in this interview, they're still pissed off. I mean, you can see it. They're still just like, because that could have ruined everything they did. That could add more victims. I mean, that's, we always say, well, why aren't they telling us stuff? Why aren't they telling us what they found? In situations like this,
reason.
You have to understand they can't tell you everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So go ahead.
LA County Sheriff Sherman Block decides to go to the media about the case. He says it's unfortunate that some politicians in the state of California gave sensitive information to the media, and it has hindered their investigation. This motivated Frank and Gil to keep going.
Yeah. So August 24th in Mission Viejo, a woman says a man shot her boyfriend. Oh my gosh. Bill Carnes. Pardon me while my mouth just reboots. Um, he shot Bill Carnes in the head, tied her up, assaulted her, and he told her he was the Night Stalker, and they knew that he was watching the news, and he must have liked that name because they had the walk-in intruder. They had all these different names. The Night Stalker was kind of the catchy, and when he looked at her and said, "I'm the Night Stalker," they knew he liked the name and was listening in.
Yeah.
I lost my place. James Romero. This is a cool story. It's a 13-year-old boy who was working on his bike. He saw a car pull up, drive around, and leave. He actually came face to face with him. I think Ramirez was out of the car walking around, and they met eyes. But he got a partial license plate number of the car and a description. So authorities get a call saying he has a friend who has a car like that was stolen in Chinatown, and the plates matched what the young man had seen. They found the car in a parking lot in downtown LA, and they processed the car and they get the print off the rear view mirror. So now they have a print. And authorities get a call from a woman whose dad hung out near Skid Row who had made a friend with a guy he called Rick. He thinks it could be the Night Stalker. He was told that Rick was from El Paso, and also said he told him he had murdered an Asian couple with a .22 pistol, and Rick had given him the gun. None of that information was public about what caliber weapon was used, so Frank and Gil knew they were meeting somebody that knew him, and this might push them in the right direction to getting him. And the man took the gun to Tijuana, though, and he had given it away to somebody. So detectives take him to Tijuana, and they get the gun as well as a boombox. Now, the radio had been stolen during the murder of Ma and Nettie, the two elderly sisters. A grandson had purchased the radio for them, and it still had the serial number on the receipt. The man says he never knew Ramirez's last name. The police informant Earl Gregg in San Francisco turns in a bracelet he thinks is connected to the case. He had gotten the bracelet from his wife's mom. She was in San Pablo, California, and investigators, including Frank Falzon from San Francisco, they went to find her. She got the bracelet from her boyfriend, Armando Rodriguez. He had gotten it from his friend Rick from El Paso, a.k.a. the Night Stalker. She said Rick wore an AC/DC hat, a members only jacket, and Rick had bad teeth.
So Falzon and other investigators go to Rodriguez's apartment. When they pull up, they see him walking towards them. They say they need his help solving the worst case in the history of California, and they told him Rick was a brutal murderer. Rodriguez says Rick isn't the Night Stalker, and he isn't helping them. Falzon grabs him up and throws him in the police car and tells him they need Rick's last name. He cusses at them. Falzon balls up his fist, and Rodriguez asks if he wants to fight. Falzon punches Rodriguez, who says, "Is that all you got?" Falzon says he flashed back to the crime scene and tells Rodriguez he will split him from head to toe. Falzon goes to hit him, and Rodriguez puts his hands to block his face and says, "Richard Ramirez."
Do you want to stop here?
That's good with me.
Yeah. So the last episode is going to be how it all went down when they caught him. That's the last episode of that whole limited series on Netflix too. Like we said, they only talk about the victims for the first 3 episodes, and Richard Ramirez, where we just stopped, that actually stops the 3rd episode. So I think it's a good place, and we'll get one more out of this. I'm gonna put a poll up about the next serial killer you guys want us to cover. So we'll name a few and see what you guys want. I will be covering that that hearing tomorrow for Chad. We'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to be anything earth-shattering, but it's something with that case, so we'll watch it.
Yeah, and at least nothing else we can talk about him, what he looked like. What color's his tie? That's the poll. It's going to be red, I'm telling you.
It's going to be blue.
Okay, I'm going red, you're going blue.
Because that's the color I lost on.
Hey,
True Crime Feud.
It'll be white. It'll be a white shirt though.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we will finish the Night Stalker up tomorrow, and then we're going to be looking for a new trial to cover. And I'm going to go back and check other cases we've been covering. I really think we need to dive hard into Suzanne Morphew.
Yeah.
Because a lot of stuff's been happening. All of our listeners follow that. So maybe tonight I'll start doing that, getting a good backstory going so we can start from the beginning, because I think that's heating up. So
Yep.
we'll figure it out. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging with us. Share the podcast with your friends. Don't forget to go like us on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. We appreciate it. And we will see you later. Sweet dreams, everybody. I hope we don't give you bad ones with this. Gave myself bad ones with this today for lunch. My throat, my poor son about got a remote to the throat. I had my arm cocked back. He was lucky.
Hit Weezer. Hit Weezer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Night,
All right,
guys.
guys. Have a good one.